Well, hello there.
Hi, I'm sorry I missed you. I was cooking.
Nah, it's all right. That's what you said. I was heading in, and I run out of phone service. I start down the hill to the spillover dam at Lake at the Green River, and I don't get service back till I get out of Polk and get back into Chimney Rock, Lake Lure, and back at the top of Rutherford County. So I always try to call before I get there.
It's always funny to me how we still have places where you don't get service.
Yeah. I mean, you aggressively don't get service there. They jam it. And if you try to use it, you may not get your service back for a day or two. Yeah. That's a different part of the world. Get off on 74 bypass and right before you get to Columbus and just go straight up 9. And Rutherford County comes up and over where Chimney Rock Lake Lure is. And Polk's kind of round and it's right up. You go all the way through Polk, all the way to the top. But when you're in Polk, you will not get phone service. I don't think they have any kind. Um, I remember when I was a kid in Tron, there was a man that owned the phone company, and he would just cut the ends of limbs off and just lay the phone wire up high enough that he could reach, and that was the phone you had. I'm not making that up. Um,
That's crazier than a party line.
yeah, well, we didn't have a party line, but we didn't get a phone until in our house, we didn't have service till 1973. Yeah. And wasn't no cell phone. 73 before we got phones in our part of the world.
But it was kind of amazing if it wasn't a party line.
No, it wasn't a party line. Now, my grandmother had one. They had a party line next door. They had a party line, but we had a private line. It came out of Polk, came out of Green Creek, was where the substation was for it. When they put that substation in and it opened in 73, we got phone service. But we didn't have a phone until then. I think it was we had to go out across the county line to Miss Wilkie's, and she had a party line, and everybody in the community used her phone. She was the only one that had one. I don't know how that deal worked, but it's kind of crazy.
She must have been friendly with somebody.
Well, she had one that came from a different service, and they had brought it out somehow, got it to her house, but she was on the other side of the county line, so we couldn't get that. So they finally put one in the substation in Green Creek. Where was I? Up going up through Montfort Cove the other day. Was that where I was? I saw an old, yeah, up in the top, going to the top of Rutherford on up into McDowell and coming out up at Sugar Hill up near Marion on 40. I was going that way the other day and I noticed that there was a substation up there. And I know that's what they are. They're a little square brick with like a concrete band across the top, one
Uh-huh.
story. They were little phone substations that Ma Bell put in all over the South, and they would string wire off of them. And I noticed one up there the other day. That's the first time I'd ever really noticed that they had one up there. I think it was across the line in McDowell, if I remember correctly, just across the line in McDowell, in the Sugar Hill, Montfort Cove, White House. It's actually a White House. There's like 3 White House communities in Rutherford County. Um, That one starts in Rutherford and ends in McDowell. But, it's amazing that I lived all my formative years till time to go to college without a phone. And now, if you didn't have your phone, you couldn't exist.
That's the truth.
Uh, yep, that's a big
I
difference.
know that we heard from
Courtney,
that she was going to be from her
right?
car, but I have not heard from anybody else.
Let's see. I think I need to admit them. I think that they're all waiting to get in. I'm sitting here talking. It just pops up randomly for them to get in. Here they come. I'm just need to let them in. Just need to let everybody in.
Well, I'm sure everybody's excited with case study night.
Oh, I know. I know I am.
I definitely am.
There's Kayla. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we again. We've all been sitting here waiting.
There's Diamond.
Yeah.
There's LaFaith. She's driving.
Well, Faith, you be careful.
Yeah. There's Raquel. Everything's good. Mm. Time I see Kayla, my sister's got a granddaughter, Kayla. She's graduating from high school this year. So she would be my grand niece, I guess. Anyways, my sister's one of her grandkids. My sister's getting ready to be great grandma again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw her yesterday. All right. I see everybody's here. I think let's get started. We don't want to be all night. My star of the week. Let's see who my star of the week is. I don't see my star of the week. It's Courtney. She's out in the lead still, but Raquel's close behind. He's making up ground. He's wearing it out. Uh, and so I'm excited about that. So y'all are doing well on your evidence work. Most everybody's into the skip. We're going to get, this is the halfway. But next week, remember, is spring break, so we don't have class next week. But y'all are doing really well. Um, Dr. Maraglia, who you've got on your discussion boards this week?
Well, I took a little bit of a different turn, without getting too much into the case study because that's their jobs
Yeah.
tonight. But I did want to point out from the case study reflection, um, Tamika, I really appreciated what you said about how important it is to create a safe space for all students because sometimes we're their only safe space. And it can get hard to remember that sometimes, especially when you're dealing with the day-to-day stresses that you have to deal with. But I just really appreciated when we talk about this case study tonight that you did mention that in your reflection. And then as I was reviewing your case studies before tonight, I also wanted to point out Tamika, LaFaith, and Raquel, in your presentation, you had a statement that just really resonated with me. Educate instead of restrict. And I think that's so important too, because I mean, of course, we're educators, that's what we do, but education beyond the classroom. And that's we want to educate our people instead of just restricting them or levying consequences. We would like them to get lessons out of their actions. And so I just wanted to point that out. That really spoke to me. So
Good.
you guys are my stars of the week. And I'm sure that you'll just continue with that tonight when you do your presentation. Oh, look at Tamika. Her eyes are getting all big.
Oh yeah.
Come on, I got faith in you.
I see Courtney's made it. She was my star of the week. She's on there. All right. So the group that went first last time gets to go. So it was so both of you have gone first one time. So we're back to the original first group again this week to present. And so tell us about Jimmy and Willie. I'm excited about that. Who's going to share their screen? Raquel's going to share his, so I'll turn my camera off. There it goes. All right, Raquel, you can unmute yourself when you get set up there.
Sorry, it was me. Um, LaFaith gonna start, but I don't know if she can. Where is she? I can't see her.
Ah,
Because she's in the
it's like
car.
she's in the car. Yeah,
Don't worry.
she can
I
just listen.
Yeah, I
I
got it.
don't need I don't need another wreck.
No, I got it.
I don't want to be responsible for that's kind of like when I was the principal up in the mountains. I've been able to say it's an optional work day, but if you don't have any days, you have to come to work. I told all mine, don't you dare come to work. I'm not going to come out and get you if you run out in the ditch. I'm not going to be responsible for you.
All right, so Jimmy and Willie attended Red Creek High School, and they were incredibly close. The students started noticing teachers, but they seen how close they were once they started kissing and holding hands in the school library. Principal Hayes responded to the phone call, emails, and letters from parents and students with the concerns of Jimmy and Willie's relationship. Mr. and Mrs. Hudson, their parents at the school, called the principal, told her basically, unless she took action against Jimmy and Willie, they would do a parent boycott of the school. The students of Red Creek had also began the petition urging Principal Haynes to cancel prom if Jimmy and Willie were allowed to attend. We focused on a couple laws. The first, a federal court law ruling in the 1980 case established that a high school cannot ban a student from bringing a same-sex date to prom, as it violates their constitutional right to free speech and equal protection. Then we focused on Title IX of Education Amendments of 1972, that basically on the basis of sex, any education program or activity receiving federal finances couldn't discriminate against them. And while Principal Haynes can cancel the prom, Jimmy and Willie will have the right to seek legal protection. Tamika, is this your slide or keep going? Sorry.
Oh, you said you were gonna keep going.
No,
I
you go
got
ahead.
you.
You go
So,
ahead.
Mary Lou's comments were a veiled threat by telling Jimmy and Willie, along with their parents, that they should not display affection or attend the prom together. She used her position of authority to discourage their freedom of expression. Her comments um, warned that negative ramifications would happen if they did not comply with what she suggested. Her comments did definitely violate their First Amendment rights and made them fearful, or could have made them fearful, to express themselves. She also used her authority to silence the students in their attempt, I should have said that, in their attempt to educate the school community on diverse populations. So, what are her responsibilities to uphold their rights to freedom of speech? She should allow them, or she should recognize, wait a minute, she must recognize that students do not lose their freedom, excuse me, their First Amendment rights when they enter the school as it relates to that Tinker standard. Um, she should also try to prevent the heckler's veto. She can't suppress lawful student expression based on fear that others might react negatively. She should honor the 14th Amendment and Title IX, that all students, including gay and lesbian students, are treated equally under school policies. Students should be protected. It's her responsibility. It's the administrators, the principal's responsibility to maintain a safe and inclusive environment which allows all students to learn free from intimidation or harassment, and she should exhibit professional judgment. Her responsibility was to display equitable treatment, to ensure staff members follow legal and ethical standards during student interactions, and there should be an attempt to educate rather than restrict certain students' rights out of discomfort or bias. Uh,
No, go ahead.
so, hmm?
Is this yours? Sorry.
Mm-mm.
All right, I can go. So basically, how should Mary Lou respond to the concerns? I think as an admin, first you have to hear the parents out and at least let them get everything out. So we basically came up with like a mock response where Mary Lou basically thanked the parents for coming to talk to her and sharing their feelings. She tell them that she understand how students showing affection made them and their child uncomfortable, but also acknowledge basically to the parents that they the admin want to address their concerns. Then, if you listen to the parents, they most likely will hopefully be able to take in the what's coming next, where you tell them basically like our school is committed to making sure everyone is treated with respect and kindness, including our students. It's our then you tell them required by law, specifically Title IX, which means we can't discriminate against them, no matter their sexual orientation. And then you try to find some way where you hope we all can work together as a community, where all students feel accepted while also respecting family values, and hopefully they respond in a good way. But the next slide, um, how, sorry, should Mary Lou allow Jimmy and Willie attend prom? I think, well, as a group, we talked about yes, Jimmy and Willie should be allowed to attend prom as a couple. The school should be committed to treating all students fairly with respect, regardless of their sexual orientation, excuse me. Just like every other student, they need to follow the same rules about appropriate physical touch and public display of
Mm-hmm.
affection to make sure everyone feels comfortable and safe at the event. Supporting their right to attend prom together is part of fostering an inclusive and respectful school and community. If any student chooses to threaten or speak negatively towards the students, they'll be held accountable using the school discipline code of conduct. And there's some takeaways from our group, what we discussed throughout making this presentation. We talked about how.
I can read that part.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Go ahead.
stopped for a second. Okay.
Go ahead.
So, the reflections. This is a tough situation to be in as an administrator. You want to support your students, but also let the parents know you understand their concerns. This case is probably in the South, so it may not be the best idea to make the situation bigger than it needs to be. A day of silence, everyone must participate. If the students would like to create a group, maybe the group can focus on diversity and multiculturalism. A whole instead of being specifically focusing on the situation at hand. This case made me reflect on the importance of making sure all students are seen and heard. Students should not be ridiculed because of how they identify race or religion, and it is the school leader's responsibility to protect all students.
Thank you. All right, you can stop your share. All right, I'm going to run through and then Dr. Maraglia is going to run through. Let me share my screen. If I can move some of this stuff out of my way. All right. All right. First point I want to make is, and Raquel brought this out in his presentation and the team's presentation. That was an excellent job. Public display of affection. If you let the little things get out of control, they will become the big things. Remember when we talked about discipline, the law of antecedent behaviors? If you don't stop the little things, they'll be, if you don't stop the sexual harassment and the sexual stuff, it'll become criminal offenses. If you don't stop gangs, it becomes drugs and violence and weapons. This is one of those cases where this was left unchecked, and what happened is it spun out of control in the community. All right, so that's the first thing. So that was the first mistake that the school administration made, was not dealing with public displays of affection from same sex, different sex, doesn't matter, from anybody. That's not an appropriate place to do that. It's in school. All right, number two. Can you talk to Jerry and Cindy Hudson about somebody else's child? Absolutely not. That's a FERPA violation. While you can commiserate, you share their, you sympathize with their concern. I don't think I would even say that, because that leads you to believe that you don't support Jimmy and Willie. This is one of those that we can't talk to you about this. Thank you for your concerns. Got to be real careful about what you say that might cast aspersions on or even allude to somebody else's child. that cannot be done. Um, I think that Jerry and Cindy or whoever um, made these statements that you see on here. That's threatening, bullying behavior, communicating threats. You know, I would be concerned about that. I think I would talk to the resource officer about what these parents said. That might be construed as hate speech or communicating threats. I mean, that's pretty rough language there. Um, was what Mary Lou did, the principal, was that a veiled threat? Of course it was. Heckler's veto is when you let the loudest and stupidest have their way and shout everybody else down, and you punish somebody who's the victim. You know, with the idea we're not going to let you come because they may hurt you. Well, then punish the people that are going to hurt them, not them. That's kind of mob rule. That's what Heckler's veto is. Um, this is a federally protected class of students. What if this were an EC kid and parents called and complained about EC kids being in the building? It would be the same thing. These are federally protected classes of killed. So this case is not really about sexual orientation as much as it's about federally protected classes of students that you can't ignore those federal protections. And then to kind of round out my part, student clubs, we're gonna cover that one last, and we're gonna go to Dr. Maraglia on that one. Day of silence, moment of silence, kids gathering around the flagpole. As long as it's not faculty led, just like religious services, that would be fine. So I'm going to put my 2 cents worth in on student clubs, and then I'm going to go to Dr. Maraglia. So, as a former high school principal, I had gay kids, and a lot of them in Charlotte in the 90s. Um, the only thing that I ever did to was I made one of the boys who wore a dress go home and change his dress because his dress was too short. The girls complained that he was wearing shorter dresses than I would allow them to wear. But I didn't care that he was wearing a dress; his just dress was too short. But in terms of clubs, I know this sounds crazy, but not only would I let them have a club, if no faculty sponsor volunteered, I would assign one. Um, I know that's going a little bit far in this day and age, but I think if you can't just you got to walk the walk. You can say that you care for all kids and want to make a safe space and do all that, but are you willing to do what it takes to create that? And I think the student organization would be. I think that's the step that you would need to take. All right, Diamond.
So I just have a question about that. What if you had teachers who did not want, like, what if they were adamant about not? Would you then assume that role, or
I would
because
assign one,
because
or I'd
wouldn't
do
it?
it myself.
Okay, that's what I was going to get at. Because aren't you causing more harm if you have someone who doesn't want to be in that
Well, I
position?
mean,
Or
teachers' contracts saying any duties assigned by the principal. So, I mean, you could assign one, but if somebody, you wouldn't pick the one that, the biggest redneck in your
right,
building to try to do that. I
right,
mean,
but
obviously,
no, yeah, but still, like
no,
sometimes feelings are
no
not.
crackers bother to apply. Um,
But sometimes feelings aren't really, because everything is so political these days in
yeah,
school.
I
Not
know.
everybody talks about it, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, again, if I
But
didn't have
if no one did,
somebody,
you would take that.
see, this afternoon, and Dr. Maraglia might be able to help me out here. I can't remember Jerry's last name. He was he was at Spa, and then he was at one of the small high schools at Olympic. What was Jerry's last name? I was talking about him as I learned to do curriculum audits from him. He was part owner of a gay club in town, and he was we all he was a colleague of ours. He's a good guy. This is not about I have a gay friend, but I often think back to him and what I learned from him as an out gay man back then. And you know, I would, but I think it's important that if I had gay faculty members back then that would have been glad to. I know Jack would have been. Um, and but if you didn't, if you were in a small rural area, you probably have to do it yourself. Probably have to do it yourself. Dr. Maraglia?
Well, one thing about the club, and they mentioned this in their PowerPoint, but in the case study, it says that they wanted to, how did they refer to it? The diversity. I want to make sure the day of diversity. They wanted to form a day of diversity, and it wasn't just about sexual orientation. It was race, class, gender, identity, different ways that people could be diverse. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. It sounds like this environment probably needs some education on diversity and inclusivity. Tamika, I don't necessarily disagree with you about it being in the South, but I think in the times we live in, which is sad to say when we're 2025, honestly, I think this could probably happen anywhere. And I remember one semester I had some students that complained and said, oh, these case studies are out of date. No, they're not. We still see things like this happening. I could absolutely see something like this happening somewhere. One thing I did want to point out that you mentioned Tinker, and I was glad you mentioned Tinker, but you have to realize that yes, students have rights, but those rights can't impact the student day. It cannot impact the organizational operation of your school. And so make sure that y'all keep that distinction in mind that yes, children have rights, but they can't be disruptive. Whether it's PDA that needs to be addressed, and who can tell me if you don't address that PDA, what kind of negligence would that be? Anybody want to take a shot at it? What kind of negligence would that be?
When you have a duty to act and you
And
don't,
you don't.
that would be nonfeasance.
So keep that in mind. And that just goes back to what Dr. Lamb said about the little things can become big things. And if you do not allow them to attend prom, what is that? Where would that fall? Because it is a violation of the law. That would be something illegal.
Wouldn't that be malfeasance? You knew it was wrong, but you did it anyway. Yeah.
Or you should have, or who knows if she knows this wrong or not, but she should know because
Yeah.
ignorance is not a defense.
Yeah.
So those were some of the things that I wanted to point out. And also remembering that the bottom line is the law is the law. And it is your job as a school administrator to uphold the law and to protect your children. And Jimmy and Willie absolutely need to be protected in this case, and taking it any further by preventing them from attending the prom or allowing any of this other bullying to occur and the threats, that is not protecting them at all. And so you just need to be mindful of that. But I think you guys hit on some great points, and I think you really nailed a lot of it tonight.
Yes. Very good.
And I could tell from your reflections that I've seen so far that this really did resonate with some people. And I appreciate that. So do we want to put the next group on the firing line?
Yeah, we're ready.
So I pulled over as well, but if Kayla or Diamond can share the screen, then I can start.
Okay, I will do my best to share it. Give me 1 second. Back up, baby. I'm gonna share this and see if somehow when I click on
Hey.
Can you guys see my screen? Do you guys
Yes.
see a presentation or no?
Yes, we can see it. It's in
Okay.
review mode, but
Mhm.
Now is it big?
there you go.
Yep,
Okay.
perfect.
All right.
All right. So we had some of the same information, so I won't bore you with the same type of things. Can you go to the next
Uh-oh.
slide for me, Shoot?
Oh, yeah.
All right. And the next one,
Okay.
go to the questions.
Yep.
All right. So question 1, was it a veiled threat? Would you consider Mary Lou's comments a veiled threat? We stated that yes, her comments implied negative consequences if the boys continued showing affection. Although intended to protect them, it could be seen as discouraging their expression. This raised concerns of infringing on their First Amendment rights to free speech and expression. Go to the next one for me.
Okay.
With question 2, Mary Lou's responsibilities under the law is to ensure a safe, non-discriminatory environment under the 14th Amendment and Title IX, protect the students from bullying and harassment regardless of sexual orientation, enforce rules fairly while respecting students' rights to expression and association, and follow the Tinker versus Des Moines schools, from 1969, where schools may not suppress student expression unless it causes substantial disruption. Go to your next one, love.
Okay.
Responding to Jerry and Cindy Hudson, we decided respond respectfully and explain the school's legal obligation to treat all students equally, emphasize that discrimination based on sexual orientation is not permitted, reassure parents that all students must follow behavior expectations at school events, and promote a message of inclusivity, safety, and mutual respect. Next one.
Okay.
And prom attendance. Should Mary Lou allow Jimmy and Willie to attend the prom as a couple? We stated yes. Denying them would violate their equal protection and free expression rights. They should be allowed to attend as long as they follow school conduct guidelines, and supporting their attendance aligns with ethical leadership and inclusivity. Go to the next one for me. For the addressing the bullying and cyberbullying, just some steps to minimize the bullying. We want to establish clear policies and communicate them widely. With education and awareness, we want to make sure people understand empathy, inclusion, and digital citizenship. Encourage confidential, anonymous reporting. You want fair, prompt investigations with due process for all students. Restorative practices when appropriate. Ongoing staff and parent training, and data monitoring to spot trends and adjust strategies. Go to the next one for me, dear.
Okay. See if I can hide that.
Skip that one.
Okay.
So our summary points in conclusion, we want to balance community concerns with students' constitutional rights. Upholding equality and inclusivity promotes a healthy, safe learning climate. Preventive measures minimize bullying and reinforce school culture. Legal and ethical leadership protects students' dignity and institutional integrity. Next one. And I'm going to pass this to my team. These were our reflections that we put in discussion questions as it relates to the case study.
Okay, so our first question, Kylie, stop. Our first question asks, how should school leaders balance student rights with community expectations? And I think it kind of, our presentation kind of already spoke to that in terms of how the school should act and then what we should do as it relates to the parents and their concerns. And essentially, the law is the law in spite of what the parents feel personally. And so I think that's kind of what we would do there. But if anyone else wants to have any input, or Dr. Lamb.
Well, if you'll remember, there was a case just a few years back in Kentucky where a clerk of court would not issue a marriage license to a same-sex couple, and everybody was just applauding her from the balcony and you go get them, girl, and all that till she went to court, and then they all disappeared. She lost everything she owned.
But you know, she's still out there like trying to get a case in front of the Supreme Court.
Oh yeah. Yeah. She sure is. I mean, this has ruined her life, but they boosted her up in the community. Oh, you go. But when she went to court, they followed the law. And so that's the thing to remember is your community might love it. I had a student in my EDCI to MSA cohort a couple years back from a county west of Asheville, and she said that absolutely that she wouldn't let them come to the prom because the community would be up in arms, and she didn't care. And I was like, well, then you're the one that's taking on all of the legal exposure here, not the people out in the community boosting you up. And see, that's the thing you've got to realize that they're shouting and wanting all this and that and the other, but when it comes court time, they're not willing to pay your judgment or your cost or any of those things. Then those people they slink back into the woodwork. So you've got to remember that too. You've got to protect yourself legally. You've got to follow the law and policy, and nobody can give you permission to break the law. Now, some of the parents, no matter what you do, they're not going to agree with you, but that's not part of the process here. Them agreeing with you is not the law. You've got to follow the law. And if they don't understand that, then that's on them. But this is a tough spot to be in, but the answer is really simple. Now, the execution might be hard, but the answer is simple.
Well, I think it's important to remember when we discuss this case study that we're not looking at it and discussing it in terms of anything about morality. Has nothing to do with that. We are talking about it from a legal standpoint and how how the law applies in this case and how it applies to you in your role as a school administrator.
Mm-hmm. There's things that happen in school every day that we probably don't agree with with our own moral compass, but that's not the issue here. The issue is will you follow law and policy? And you would think or you would hope that would be the easy thing to do, but in cases like this, especially in this day and age, it's not the easy thing to do. It's the hard thing to do. But remember, in the adult world, there is no fair. That's where you go in the fall of the year to get a corn dog and ride the Ferris wheel. There is no fair in adult life.
Well, I'm curious if anyone has any thoughts on how the case study ended, how Principal Hines ended it by telling the boys that graduation was a couple of months away and perhaps they could postpone their plans pending further study. What are your thoughts on that? How she handled it?
I thought she was just brushing it under the rug so she doesn't have to deal with it at the moment. It's kind of how I interpreted that. Like, I think she had a lot going through her mind. So she was just like, hey, we'll deal with it later type. But again, with the prevention, I guess, to what I was going to say about those questions 2 and 3, they kind of went together in my head. And it kind of speaks to this because, again, you are not addressing issues. You're not addressing situations when they arise, which could lead to other things from this standpoint. In my opinion, I think you're just kind of leaving the door open for other issues to come in when you don't handle these situations. This one, it was already large enough. So why would you continue to push it on? That's kind of how I would look at it from an admin standpoint. Sorry, I'm a little sick, y'all. But looking at 2 and 3 and answering the question that you're asking about, how did she deal with it? Working in high school, this case study was very, very relevant to me. I know Dr. Lamb brought up like the dress code and all of that, and I see this on a daily.
I'm sure you do.
And I see the bullying on a daily.
Yeah.
And one thing, and my kids will tell you, like, no, Miss Williams just ain't gonna play that regardless of who I am. And it doesn't matter. I take everything else out of the picture. I look at a human being first, a student scholar first. And so when we talk about being inclusive and being proactive, to me, they go hand in hand. With this case study, you allowed the kissing or whatever to get to a certain point, regardless of who they were. You allowed certain things to get to a certain point before it was addressed. That was how I took the case, and looked at it. For me, it was a lot of admin brushing under the rug, and that's why when you said, well, how does she responded with how she's been responding the entire school year, in my opinion. So
That's
wasn't
a great statement right there,
I mean,
Diane.
that's how I kind of looked at it. Instead of just nipping things in the bud. We've had these, like I said, with high school, we have these situations. To me, it brought up like the prom king and queen of being male versus like because we had males run for homecoming queen, and like that's where because of high school, when you say this was not totally out of the realm, this is super relevant today and probably will continue to be.
Maybe I mean, not it's sad, but it's true.
Exactly. I mean, I looked through, my picture albums. I have pictures of my same-sex couple kids in my photo albums from prom. So this to me resonated probably, a little bit more than it should have, because I see it every single day. And I am that teacher that these kids kind of come to and have these conversations with, on that level. So like you said, it's more about just protecting the student against whatever you believe. No one cares about that. That's not what this is about. It's about us doing a job to protect students, all of them. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think you pretty much summed it up right there, Diamond. I don't know if I can follow that.
No, that's really good. That's really good. Thinking down the road, here's a little clever administrative axiom for you that piggybacks on Diamond. How you do some things is how you do all things. Let me say that again. In the administrative world, how you do some things is how you do all things. And if you've been brushing it under the rug all year long, not dealing with it, then why would you expect that all of a sudden you'd have a backbone and start dealing with it now when there's pressure on now? You wouldn't deal with it when there wasn't pressure on. What would you do with a principal like that if you were this principal supervisor? What would you do with a principal like that?
There would have to be a conversation with the principal about, first off, your job is to protect these children. And especially if the principal came to me and told me some of the things that the parents said, which are offensive.
Yes.
We would have to have a very deep conversation about the comments, about how the principal has been handling it, and just to Diamond's point, why did you wait until it got to this point before you decided to address it?
And then you did it illegally. Yeah, you even took the easy way out then.
There may even be a little bit of disciplinary action on
Yeah,
the principal.
not following the law, not enforcing the code of conduct, the policies. That's what we hire you for, is to follow law and policy. That's what you get hired to do. And I've told you, somewhere in the interview process, early on, they're going to slip that question in. If there was a law or policy that you didn't agree with, would you enforce it? And the answer is yes. This is exactly that case. This may be against your personal moral code, but it doesn't matter. It's law and policy, and that's what we hired you to do, was to carry it out. Now, this is a relevant case. We're still fighting this one out, but as long as these laws are on the books and these kids have these protections, it's our responsibility to make sure that they get them. That's what we need to do. Well, y'all have done a great job tonight. Um, Looking at our weekly schedule, let me share my screen. As I said, next week is fall break week, and so you have that off. Don't forget to keep on getting your skip or finishing up your OMA and getting your working on your skip. Following week, we're going to do human resources, then facilities. And so when we get back on the 29th, I will cover the last case study because it's a doozy. It has about everything that we've covered this semester in it. And I do want to go over again and highlight it. Y'all did a great job on this one. You're beginning
Mhm.
to understand that you got to do the reading, you got to dig, you got to find out what the law is. If you don't know, you got to find out. And so we'll cover that case study. We won't. I won't spend a lot of time on it because y'all are doing really well. I don't think I'm gonna have to spoon feed you too much on that one. And then we have a couple more weeks of class, a case study, and then 2 more weeks, and then we'll wrap it up the first week in December. We may get done on there at Thanksgiving on the 26th, but if we have to postpone or if we're running late, we'll do that one on the 3rd. Otherwise, um, we'll try to finish up on the 26th. All right, I'm gonna stop my share. Anybody have anything for the good of the group before we go?
I just want to remind everyone, um, don't forget your artifacts because you've got to have them in there by the end of the semester. You're at the point where you're finishing up your OMAs if you haven't already. And so make sure that you're submitting those artifacts, requesting comments, because I've gone in there pretty quickly as soon as I get those emails from TaskStream that there's something in there. So just keep that at the forefront of your mind so you don't forget those.
Yep. All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Everybody have a good break. Thank you for being with us tonight. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Good
All
night.
right.